rather than give you some canned stump speech, like I said, we'll make it two-way interactive for the most part. I was on WMT radio this afternoon. Bob Bruce said, "What are people talking about out there, Rod?" So let me just start there. The thing when I give my stump speech that gets the most reactions when I talk about Congress. You know, I talk about Washington, D.C. being broken. When I talk about reforming Congress, that gets the biggest reaction. People, I'm telling you, in eastern Iowa, and you probably share this here, especially being Tea Party members, people are sick of Washington, D.C. They're sick of the ruling class in Washington. Career politicians. Okay, they're tired of what we're getting or not getting from the career politicians in Washington. And I mean, they're angry. So just like 2 years ago we had a wave election, I can feel that coming again. People, it's not a good time. We saw Richard Lugar in Indiana, right, long-time United States Senator. He lost in the primary. I think I can feel that here in Iowa as well. People are tired of Congress. When I talk about career politicians, it resonates with voters. I'm going to limit myself to 3 terms in Congress, 6 years in the House of Representatives. I think part of the problem is we've got people there on both sides of the aisle that have been there 30 and 40 years. They go there to do what's right. They go there and they're idealistic. And after a while, they become part of the problem. Also, I mentioned to people that the average congressman makes $174,000 a year for 151 days' work. And I ask the crowds usually, do you think you're getting your money's worth? That's a laugh line. It's usually a laugh line. I pledge to you I'm going to take $39,366 a day, which is what the average American makes. And I was on the Jan Michelson show on WH Radio in Des Moines. He said, "You can't even find an apartment in Washington, D.C. right on $39 grand a year." I said, well, you know what? Maybe if the congressman had to live like average Americans had to live, maybe things would be different in Washington. I also talk about if Congress is going to foist Obamacare on us citizens, then they should be on Obamacare. Yeah. Now, they already have an exemption. They've already been granted exemption by Barack Obama.
So do the union.
So do the union. I agree with that. That's just not right. I talk about, you know what, the laws that we have to live under, Congress should all have to live under. For example, insider trading has come to light in the last 6 months. You know, these guys, I always say it's like going down a county road in Iowa, and you come across a turtle on a fence post, sitting on top of the fence post, and you go, how did that get there? This doesn't seem right to me, right? Isn't that like these guys going to Washington, D.C.? They're penniless, they're young, and they come back multi-millionaires off of government service. And I don't think that's right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, although I think you should go the other direction. I mean, people are very willing to say, well, we should make Congress subject to the same laws all the rest of us. I'd say no, introduce a bill that says if the law doesn't apply to Congress, then it doesn't apply to us either.
I'd be all for that. These guys love to brag about the legislation they all pass. I'd like to brag about, if I'm lucky enough to be your congressman in Washington, I want to brag about the laws that I helped repeal. Okay. And the other thing is lobbying. If these guys ever lose office, what do? They wait 12 months, that's the law, they turn around and do what? They lobby their former colleagues, and they're making millions doing that. And I think that is profoundly wrong. You should not get rich off of being a public servant. And I pledge to you, I will never, ever lobby anyone of my former colleagues ever. I would support a permanent ban on lobbying. Lifetime permanent ban if you've served in the House or the United States Senate. So that's the thing that gets people, that's the thing that resonates the most. The thing that resonates most, I'm going to tell Bob Bruce this afternoon, is, you know, they're trying to control our lives every day. They take away liberties and freedom every day they meet. You know, and I see in New York City now, today, Bloomberg said they're going to ban soft drinks that have sugar in them. Are you kidding me? They tell us what we can drink. They tell us what kind of toilets we can buy. They tell us what kind of light bulbs we can buy, what kind of cars we should be driving. You know, get out of my life. I go back to Americans are not that stupid. I believe in Eastern Iowa. I believe you all are not dumb. I believe you can make great decisions as consumers for what's best for you and your family. Democrats believe, Bruce Braley believes what? Believes in government. It's like, get out of my pocketbook and get off my back. The other two things that we talk a lot about out there, East Ramos want to talk about is the debt, the economy, growing jobs, and Obamacare. So feel free to raise your hand and throw your 2 cents in as we talk about these things. The debt. Okay, we're having another debt ceiling debate coming up. In December, we're supposed to hit, I think, it's $16.3 trillion in debt. So we've burned through another $1 trillion since the last time we had this debate. Unbelievable as it may seem. Okay, so right now, our debt is about 16 trillion. Our GDP is 15, 16 trillion. So our debt equals our GDP, correct? 100%. Okay, Greece, would we all agree Greece is a disaster? Absolute disaster. Their debt to GDP ratio is 145%. Italy's 120%. America's 100%. And I looked at the graphs, and I compared the United States to the European countries. I'm a student pilot, so I know what a glide slope is. We're on the same glide slope. We're on the same path. We're just 5 years behind those European countries. As Ronald Reagan always said, the government can't tax and spend its way to prosperity. And if that were true, Greece, Italy, Spain would be economic powerhouses, would they not? And they're in financial trouble. Most economists agree that when the debt to GDP ratio, ours is 100%, when it gets above 80%, bad things happen to a country. Above 80%. And one of the bad things is economic growth rates. GDP growth rates tend to halve. They get cut in half. Now, most of you remember Ronald Reagan. You remember when we came out of that Jimmy Carter recession? Yep. Our average GDP growth rate was around 6%. 6%. What's ours now? 1.9, 0.4, 1. Depends on the quarter. Okay? Horrible. Coming out of a deep recession. Our growth rate should be 6 to 8%, and they're horrible. One of the reasons we have so much debt. The economists are right. And this has got to stop. I will not vote. You send me to Washington, I will not vote for a debt ceiling increase. Absolutely will not do it. Somebody somewhere has to say no. Let's burn the credit card. Let's cut the credit card up. Yes, sir.
Rod, while you're talking money, what about the Federal Reserve, and how are you going to handle it?
Okay. Oh, that's one of my favorite topics. Love the piece of stuff. Yeah.
There's 2 questions I've got. That's for her.
Okay, go ahead with the second one. The
second one is, well, according to my calculation, you got about $135,000. You don't know what to do with it. You're like, what are you going to do with it?
Return it to the federal treasury.
Will they take it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's how we
yeah.
Aren't you just enabling them?
Well, I mean, that's the first time anybody's ever said that. Or I can donate to charity would be a much better cause.
Yes.
I would agree with that.
Take your salary and do something good with it.
Federal Reserve. That's a good point. I haven't asked that. Federal Reserve. Pet peeve of mine. I think they're out of control. All kinds of issues there. But first of all, Ronald Reagan in the 80s, what did he do to bring our economy back and bring our country back? Lower taxes, reduce regulations on business, and how are you? Good to see you. And implemented a strong dollar policy. What has Barack Obama done? Threatened higher taxes. 10 new regulations a day on business. That doesn't sound bad. He's been in office for 1,000 days. 10,000 new regulations on business people. I'm a business guy. I live this stuff. EPA's out of control. But he also implemented a strong dollar policy. This is a weak dollar policy, is it not? What's interesting is, and it's personal to me, because my mother, 82 years old, had 10th grade education. My father had 10th grade education, because he quit high school, lied about his age, and enlisted in the United States Navy to fight World War II. Okay, with their 10th grade education, they have a house that's paid for. My father's passed away, so my mom has a house that's paid for, and $50,000 in the bank. CDs. Okay, at normal interest rates, she should be getting about $250 a month in income. Today, I mean, I do her banking for her. $25 a month in income is all she receives. I think that is an absolute tax on my 82-year-old mother. Their interest rate is like half of 1%. Why is that? The Federal Reserve is artificially keeping interest rates low. Why are they doing that? Well, I'm also on a bank board. in Dubuque. At the last board meeting, I said, raised my hand, I said, just out of curiosity, what are we borrowing money from the Fed for? What are we paying? How much interest? 0.04%. Not 4%. 0.04%. I followed that up. I said, pretty soon they'll be paying us to borrow it. So we're borrowing for free at a $1 billion bank. My 82-year-old mother, instead of getting $250 a month in interest on her CDs, is getting $25 a month. I think there's something profoundly wrong with that. Secondly, last year, our government could not sell 61% of our bonds. 61%. Now, China and Japan have been huge bond buyers for years. They're starting to walk away from the table, and we all know why. Because they're concerned about our ability to pay back those bonds, correct? So 61% go unbought. Well, guess who bought them? Federal Reserve bought them. Okay, that's just like opening up this drawer and putting in this drawer. The economic term for that is monetizing the debt. We're monetizing the debt. We're printing money. Never thought I'd see it in my lifetime, that we'd be printing money. So that's the second thing they're doing. They're printing money. That's a tax on any of us that have anything. Any kind of an asset is going to make our assets worth less, because they're putting more dollars out there into the economy. I think the Fed needs to be audited. The Fed needs to be get under control. There's been the Fed's original mandate in 1913 when it was formed was to have a sound dollar, hold inflation down. Okay. Then they added, I believe it was under Carter, what's called a dual mandate, another mandate they gave it, and that is full employment. Now, sound dollar and full employment are generally mutually exclusive. You can't have both. So what they're doing today now, under Barack Obama, Bruce Braley, is full employment. Just people worry about that. So the sound dollar, out the window. If we're going to have inflation here, you can't put $1 trillion a year into the economy extra and not have roaring inflation. When our economy starts to roll again, you watch inflation. It's going to be a huge, huge issue. So the Fed, that's a pet peeve of mine. They need to be audited. There's no doubt about it.
The most insidious thing about the Fed, the way they inject money, is they don't simply buy the bonds directly. What they do is they loan the money at about 0% interest rate to Goldman Sachs and some of the other big financial institutions, and they in turn, with this borrowed money, buy the bonds and they get the interest. Why in the heck is that going on? You know, if that isn't crony capitalism, I never heard of that.
Well, you answered, Michael. You answered. It's crony capitalism.
Right.
Goldman, yes. Is there another question, or?
Question.
Okay, let me finish this.
Okay.
94.
94. Is anybody waiting for a pizza?
Me.
Nope.
94, anybody?
Nope. Okay.
He answered the question. It's crony capitalism. Goldman Sachs, their executives and former executives, they have fingers into every area of our federal government, and it truly is incestuous, the relationship there. Lots of the Treasury secretaries are former Goldman Sachs CEOs. Correct. So you're exactly right. It's crony capitalism. I hate crony capitalism. I detest crony capitalism and subsidization of industries. You know, they pick a favorite industry, solar power. They take your tax dollars and throw billions of dollars at solar power. I don't think the government, 535 suits in Washington, D.C., should be picking the winners and the losers. How's their track record been?
They pick the losers.
They pick the losers really good. I don't know of any winners that they've picked. So we need to get the government out of the private sector to the extent possible. They should be there to referee when there's a disagreement legally. That's one of their enumerated powers under the Constitution. But they should not be picking winners and losers. I'm not for all these subsidies. And this crony capitalism. I own a small business, a Main Street business. We don't get any of this. And I'm okay with that. I don't want any of it. But let's get them out of all business.